All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to continue on with some of the top headlines right now of the day. And this one, a very interesting one, as the interim head of the country's cyber defense agency uploaded sensitive contracting documents into a public version of ChatGPT last summer. This incident involving Madhu Gottumukkala, the interim director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, who uploaded contracting documents marked, quote, for official use only into the AI chatbot last year. And obviously, a lot of concerns about this and a potential security breach and conversations around that. An internal review to assess whether the incident has compromised government security now ongoing. So let's continue on and discuss exactly what this means. We're going to be joined right now by former General Counsel for the NSA, Glenn Gerstell. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And this feels like a major deal. Are government employees generally allowed to use ChatGPT or other AI tools for this official use?
As a general matter, Andy, ChatGPT is not allowed for federal government employees, especially for ones dealing with, certainly for ones dealing with classified information, and even for ones dealing with official documents, such as the acting director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And by the way, that's replicated across industry. Big companies, financial institutions, JP Morgan, Citibank, Amazon, Verizon, Samsung, all the big companies, they do not allow ChatGPT or other similar AI chat platforms to be made available to their employees for official documents, because they're concerned about the risk of disclosure, of course.
And can we just get into that? Because it seems obvious that there is potentially security issues when you're talking about ChatGPT and the public ChatGPT. But exactly from your perspective, what type of security issues arise when you use artificial intelligence in that way?
Sure. Well, in this case, whatever the director was uploading into ChatGPT was evidently of significant enough to set off some, in effect, smoke detectors, so to speak. There are sensors in their computer network of the Department of Homeland Security that monitor classified and official and sensitive and confidential information, and they were tripped. Those alarms were tripped when this was uploaded into ChatGPT, thus resulting in the inquiry that you just mentioned. So we don't know exactly, it hasn't been publicly disclosed exactly what the contracting documents are, but you can imagine this is the agency that's responsible for all cybersecurity in the civilian part of the federal government and generally protecting the nation. And this person is the acting director, the #1 person in that agency. So the kinds of documents that are going to be on his desk, so to speak, are going to be probably the most sensitive and important documents relating to their contracts about perhaps new vulnerabilities, new tools to detect cybersecurity incidents. And you can imagine that ransomware criminals would love to know about that, as would countries like China or Russia, who are constantly seeking to attack us in cyberspace.
And some of these reports also note that there wasn't classified information. It was just contractual that was only kind of internal use only. But I also want to ask you, because you mentioned the smoke alarm, that he used some of these and it kind of set off alarm bells. But when he joined kind of this organization, wanted to use ChatGPT because it wasn't on his platform. Should that have been an indicator? Should it have been that obvious?
Well, apparently, according to news reports, the director asked for an exemption from his agency because he wanted to be one of the handful of employees who are allowed to use ChatGPT. That exemption was granted. He evidently did use it. I'm sure that the exemption did not allow him to upload confidential or official use documents. It was probably far more limited. I don't know whether his action in uploading these documents was just a simple, honest mistake, it was careless, or whether it was something intentional, whatever. But put that aside, the fact of the matter is these documents were for official use only, did contain confidential information, and should not have been uploaded. I mean, you can imagine if you're, for example, an executive at Coca-Cola, you're not going to upload the secret formula for Coke. Why? Because the next guy who uses some AI platform asking for a good recipe for a cola drink is going to possibly get wind of what you've uploaded.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I think a lot of people would like to get their hands on some of that Coca-Cola recipe. Some bad actors would prefer other information. You mentioned that other bad actors might be out there, different nefarious countries as well. Are they doing this already? And how can that pose a threat to national security?
We already know that that countries like China, in particular, Russia, others, are constantly using ChatGPT and other AI platforms, both for malicious purposes to try to figure out better ways of making cyber attacks. And they're using it for espionage to gather information about Americans. OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT, has actually shut down a number of Chinese accounts. And by the way, to be fair to OpenAI, they do have effort. They do make an effort to try to anonymize data, keep it confidential, et cetera. But nothing's foolproof. One of the things you could do as an individual, by the way, if you're using ChatGPT or some other AI platform, is look at the privacy settings, uncheck the box that says allow my data to train to be used for training purposes, meaning your information, your uploads won't go into the memory system and the analysis of the platform. There are steps you can take, obviously starting with, of course, just don't upload any really sensitive information in the first place.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that more broadly speaking, because obviously Gottumukkala is just this individual, is the interim director there of this lead cyber defense agency. But if you're just working in an office, these also lessons are applicable to you. Can you get into that more? How can you use this on a broader sense?
Sure. Well, look, one of the things we love about all this technology, and it is fabulous, is that these AI platforms, chatbots, give us tremendous tools, immense analysis, are really of great assistance to our everyday lives and commercial lives. So they're definitely useful, but they carry a price tag with them. And that price tag is that it's trained on your information that you give these chat platforms and AI platforms in your prompts, and what you upload for it to analyze are all part of its memory. And as I said, there are steps you can take to minimize that. At the end of the day, your information becomes part of the public pool of information that is available. And again, in the case here of confidential government information, you can imagine that this would give a ransomware criminal who found out what kind of contracts CISA was entering into, the director's agency was entering into. That might give them a leg up on knowing what kind of defenses there are, what kind of firewalls are involved, where the agency thinks there may be American vulnerabilities for Americans and businesses and individuals. So the potential here for risk is significant. This is not just a dry technical thing, but to be fair, also, we don't know the details. So maybe it's not as bad as the worst case analysis. Let's certainly hope so.
Yeah, some of those reports still coming in are concerning, but as you mentioned, we want to be hesitant to say we know it all at this point. But speaking of the legal ramifications of this, both as a government, but also as a business, are there ramifications in the court system about this? Is there anything in your eyes when you're viewing it from that perspective?
Well, let's start with the good news, which is that apparently there was no classified information involved here, meaning information classified at the secret or top secret level. So that, of course, is really important. We certainly wouldn't want that floating around in an AI system. But the next level down is confidential information that relates to government activities that isn't yet public, and if public, might well damage the national interest. You could, for example, imagine labor statistics coming out before they're supposed to be officially released, certain financial information, in this case, information about cybersecurity at this agency. So if that's released, it could have some harm. There are consequences for this. Obviously, if you release and disclose classified information, there are some very serious criminal penalties. Put that aside, that's not involved here. But as a government employee, one could have a range of sanctions imposed on them for misuse of official documentation, ranging from a simple reprimand, a letter in your file, so to speak, to actually being required to take more courses on proper procedures, to, at the end of the day, being terminated from your government position in the worst case analysis.
How serious would it be if someone uploaded a top secret, a classified, confidential kind of document? How much would that be looking into? And are artificial intelligence companies eager to kind of share that information about who uploaded this and when?
So if we're talking about something classified, that is, of course, extremely serious. And we've had instances where either deliberately or accidentally classified information has become available in the public realm, whether someone's officially leaking or accidental or whatever. And that's really serious because if any of our enemies, our adversaries overseas, learn about our defenses, what we're doing for national security, they'll learn about it. It's just like releasing the playbook for the Super Bowl before the day before the game. The other side's going to learn what you're up to, and that's certainly not good at all. In this case, as I said, we don't know the details here, but you could well imagine that ransomware criminals who actively use ChatGPT and other AI platforms to learn about their potential victims, this could be of significant information to them.
Yeah, and you mentioned potentially the playbook for the Super Bowl. We're a week out, and Bill Belichick also got snubbed from the Hall of Fame. So, kind of an interesting analogy there for you, Glenn. What is in your eyes the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, their role? What do they need to do? Is it just eliminating a ChatGPT from a platform? Is there something else they can do?
Well, they've got lots of internal rules. They're part of the overall Department of Homeland Security, which is subject to a series of standard rules, as is every government agency, on how to handle official information such as this, information for official use, which is confidential or sensitive or contracting information. I'm sure that after we'll see what the results of this inquiry are. It could range from, as I said, simply an honest incident, an honest accidental mistake. He didn't realize the document he was uploading was official use only, even though I might add they're typically labeled that. So it could just be, as I said, innocent mistake. It could be something a little more intentional, that he maybe didn't think the rule applied to him, or he had thought there was some exception, or who knows what. I don't want to get into that. It's beside the point. The agency does need to make sure that its rules are complied with by all employees, whether they're at the top of the agency or the bottom of the agency.
That's a very good point. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. Anything else we're missing? Because this is a fascinating space, especially in 2026 when ChatGPT becomes more prevalent on everyone's device, everyone's phone. Anything else you want to note?
It just bears repeating that these AI platforms are of terrific benefit, whether you're using them as a chat or whether you're using them to solve a problem or design a room for you or whatever. But just be aware that every information you give, whether it's just a simple prompt or you're uploading your bank account balance to have it be analyzed better, or your credit card spending, that all gets into not literally public, but potentially available in some form or another. And that's why, as I said, it's really important to go back and look at the privacy settings and make sure you're happy with them.
All right, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Vox. Great stuff, great insight here, as always.
Thank you.